So yeah, welcome. Whether you're joining me on Facebook or anybody who wants to join me on Zoom, you are very welcome to. So today, what am I talking about today? I want to share with you um, something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and I'm going to talk about how I helped a lady with her habits. So let me start from the beginning. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Um, if you've not read it, and it's funny, isn't it? Because I was thinking about this book the other day. I've already read it before, and I'm thinking I'm going to read that again. And then I've seen somebody on Facebook this morning saying, "Oh, I'm just rereading Atomic Habits by James Clear," and I was thinking, "Oh, how funny!" I was just thinking about that book. It's a sign. I'm definitely going to read it again. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And what he talks about is obviously habits and but how we associate things with habits and how to break them and as well. And one of the things that one of my takeaways from it, and tell me if you've ever felt like this, is because it, like I say, he talks about how you associate um even like different areas in your house with different things that you do. And so this is my office, and I've got a lovely little couch over there. And so this is where I tend to do my work. And I love it. It's a beautiful space. I've got a gorgeous view. And, sometimes if I'm just reading or if I'm, maybe just feeling a bit creative, I tend to sit at the couch that's in my room and I can kind of, I can put my feet up and I can create. And it's a wonderful space for doing that. And there are sometimes, especially in the winter, when we've had the log burner going, because it's really cozy and it's lovely. And I've thought, I think I'm going to work downstairs today because you kind of think, oh, how lovely to sit in front of the fire and it's a bit cold and miserable outside and it's all cozy and oh, it's going to be so lovely. And then I've got all my stuff downstairs and I've got sat and I've just got distracted. And I noticed that I'm not very productive and I'm not putting the telly on or anything like that. So I'm not getting distracted. But I don't know. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work for me. And so I would try this loads of times. I've done it. I said, oh, I'm going to work downstairs today. It's gonna be ace. Get on the sofa and cozy. And then do bits, but not as much as I needed to or should have done or whatever. And it was only when I read this that it made sense, really. And what he says in the book is how you associate different areas, like I've already said, with different habits that you have. And so for me, when I'm sitting downstairs in front of the fire, that's where I go to relax on an evening when I've finished work or on a weekend, perhaps when we're just chilling out. And so I sit in the same spot on the sofa. Do you have a spot where you sit? Have you got a chair or a spot? We tend to have our spots in the house. Isn't it funny when you think about it? And so I sit so I would take my work downstairs, sit in the spot. And of course, my brain associates that with relaxing. So I'm not geared up for working or being productive and dynamic. My brain's going, oh, lovely, toasty fire. Let's just relax. And so I've come back to where I work up here then. Because also, when I leave here and I close the door, it's again that switch in my brain that says, work's done now. I've finished. And so I know I've got lots of friends on here. I don't know if any of you are watching, but that work from home, you've got your own businesses. Do you feel like that you need to have your own space, where your designated workspace, because that's where you get stuff done. That tends to be like, right, I'm working now. You sit there. and that's where you do your work, and then you leave that space and go and do whatever else you're doing. Do you have that space? I'd love to hear, because I definitely have. And again, even within this room, if I want to sit and read or kind of study or absorb something, I don't sit in this chair. I go sit on the couch, because this chair is where I work. This chair is where I am dynamic. This is where I do the video recording. This is where I do the stuff, I'm not very creative here, but I am in that space. Definitely something to think about, right? Can you kind of see how we do? I didn't even realize it, but we definitely do tune in and connect different things with different habits. And so, yeah, just something to think about. I'm really interested to hear what comes up for you, and like, oh, yeah, actually, I never thought about that. I'd love to hear. And so, what I want to talk to you about today is I want to share with you a story. So, there's a lady that I worked with, that I helped. She was a client of mine. I'm going to call her Sarah. She's actually not on my Facebook anyway. However, somebody might recognize anything about this, what I'm about to say. So I'm going to call her Sarah. And Sarah came to me because she said to me, I've got myself into a really bad habit, and it's having a really, really negative effect on all areas of my life, and I don't know how to stop it. Can you help me? And so I said, yeah, of course I can. And so it was with drinking. So Sarah was drinking every night. I'm not suggesting that she was an alcoholic or anything like that. I'm just saying that it become a bit of a pattern of behaviour, that on a night time then she would have a drink. And I don't, again, not necessarily getting, totally drunk and outrageous or anything like that, but she would have a drink, perhaps a bottle of wine, maybe not, every night. Um, but then it would have, like I say, this knock-on effect. She'd then start to beat herself up about it, and she didn't feel really good about herself, and then she felt really ashamed of herself and embarrassed, and so she would wake up the following morning kind of beating herself up. Why did I have a drink last night? Oh, I'm an idiot. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? This, that, and the other. And her daughter would go off to school and she would go off to work, and then she'd come home, and the cycle would just repeat itself. And so it was a real negative. You can see, can't you, how it would just, and because she was feeling so low in herself, it'd be like, oh, well, I might as well have another drink then. So she'd have another drink that night. And it was just a vicious, vicious cycle. And so it was having a real massive impact on her own self-esteem, as well as there will have been probably some physical. I'm not going to mention the physical stuff, but certainly mentally, it was really having a very, very negative effect on her self-esteem. And also her relationship with her daughter. She was very distant from her because she was just in this negative cycle. And so when we met up, and we started talking about this, she was saying that, she enjoyed having a drink, she liked having a glass of wine, but then it just, this knock-on effect of this self-sabotage of, oh my God, the little chatter that I talk about, this chatter would kick in. Oh my God, you've had another drink. Oh my God, what are you? And you might be listening to this thinking, actually, yeah, maybe it's not drink, maybe it's eating, maybe it's something else that that you do, and then you beat yourself up about it, and then you do it again, and whatever. We do fall into these things, and they can be quite easy to fall into, and before you know it, there's your habit, and it's like, oh my God, it's almost like, this is what I do, this is my life, this is my routine. She wasn't sleeping great either, because alcohol it's not conducive for a good night's sleep. Um, and she ended up having to take some time off work because, again, and I've mentioned this in previous lives, that, if you're not getting a good night's sleep, I mean, that in itself, sorry, has a knock-on effect on other aspects um, of your life, of your cognitive function, of your self-esteem. If you're going through the day tired, everything seems a bit harder. You're less able to cope with stress or things like that. So sleep is a massive thing. And so she'd asked for help, which is amazing. And I said to her, hats off to you. You've asked for help, and that's amazing. So let's have a look. And so what we did was we just had a look at, because she only drank on an evening. And so we looked at what that evening routine was for her. So, like, from getting home from work, tea time, what was tea time like for her, for her daughter, and then seeing to her daughter, getting her off to bed. And it was then that she would then have a drink. So her daughter would be in bed, and then she would come downstairs, and then she'd go into the living room, sit in this usual spot. She had a spot in the living room, and she'd get herself a drink. And so I said to her, "Isn't it funny?" I said, would you take a glass of wine to bed? She's like, "No, no." "Do you ever sit in the kitchen and have a glass of wine?" "No." "Do you have a glass of wine when you're cooking tea?" "No." It was always at this point of the evening in the living room. And I said, "Where do you sit?" "I'd sit here, my glass is there, put the telly on, and I'd have a drink." I said, "Okay." So then we started to look at how could we mix that up? Because, again, thinking about this kind of this neural, if you like, this effect that the brain just associated it. At that time of night, she sits there, she drinks. And even if and she tried it, going into the room without a drink, her brain would just go, "This isn't right. You need to have a drink in your hand." And so she would go and get one. Because that's the pattern that her brain was picking up. And so we talked about kind of, what other things would you like to do? What hobbies do you have? What else would you do? Because then she was saying, "I've just wasted my nights. There's so many things I'd love to do. But by the time I've had a couple of drinks, I don't want to do them, or I can't do them. So, this is my life now. This is it every night. This is what I do." So I said, "So what would you like to do then? What sort of things would you like to do?" And she loved jigsaws, like me. She likes a jigsaw. She was learning to play the piano. She liked to read. There were so many things that she liked to do. But then she said, "I don't have time." So, well, you do. You do have time. You've got every evening. You're just spending that time doing something else. And so I said to her, "How about let's try something? Let's mix this up. Let's break this cycle." And so instead of, when you come downstairs after you've put your daughter to bed, instead of going into the living room, why didn't you go into the kitchen where she had a nice big dining table? Bearing in mind she had a jigsaw that she'd had for months and hadn't done. So I said, "How about you go into the kitchen where your dining table is and sit and do your jigsaw instead? Would you be tempted to have a drink then?" And she said, "No, because I don't drink in the kitchen." I said, "Well, why don't you try that then?" Because she didn't associate drinking in the kitchen, she wasn't tempted to drink in the kitchen then. And so part of the CBT techniques that I share and I coach with my ladies is, we call it behavioural experiment. And it's kind of like, just give it a try. Let's just be open, give this a try, and see. See what the results are. Does it make a difference? Does it help? Did you think about having a drink? Was it tempting? Did you have to really think, no, 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 no? How did it go? And so she said, "You know what? I'm going to try that. It makes sense what you've said, and I'm going to try it." And so I left her. I'd seen her in the morning. I left her and I said, "Let me know how you get on." And she messaged me, I think it was that night, and she was like, "I'm already in bed. I've had an amazing night. I've not touched a drop and I'm already in bed. And I just feel so much better in myself. And I was like, well, that's amazing. Good on you. See how you sleep. I'd recommended meditation on the night time because that's what I do. And like, but again, we looked at the bedtime routine. So instead of like falling into bed because you've had a few drinks and whatever, let's set up a bedtime routine then that's going to be more conducive to a good night's sleep. And so we looked at that as well. We created, well, she helped to create a bedtime routine. So she followed that. She messaged me the next day and she just said, I can't believe the difference. She'd got up in the morning with her daughter. Her daughter was of an age where she could sort her own breakfast, by the way. She wasn't a tiny little girl. But she'd got up with her. She'd sat and had breakfast with her daughter. She'd had tea with her daughter the night before. I should have mentioned that because she wasn't doing that before. She was having her tea later on. And actually, her daughter had said, I'm loving this. I'm getting to see more of you now, which you can imagine, can't you? How that felt. Hearing that from her daughter was just incredible. And so I said, obviously day one, brilliant, tick. The key is to keep going. Now, there was a day that she messaged me and she said, oh, I've messed up. I went in the room and I did have a drink, I said, that's okay. It's okay. It's going to happen, but you've recognized it and, you know what to do. And that's the key. And this is, again, what I coach and how I help women. It's giving you the tools for your toolkit so that you can go, actually, I know why I'm feeling this. I know what I'm feeling and how it's affecting me, but I know what to do to get back on track. So she knew straight away. She's like, right, I'm not doing it tonight. Tonight I'm going to do da 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 da. And that's what she did. She was back on the tracks, and there you go. And, I hear from her from time to time. She's doing amazing. She went back to work within a couple of weeks. Do you know what I mean? And it's just because we managed to break the cycle. How amazing is that? How amazing is that? And I wonder if you're listening to this today and thinking, it might, like I say, it might not be drinking, it might be other things that you think, do you know what? That's a real negative cycle that I've got into. It might be a thought process. And again, this is what CBT is all about. It's like interrupting that because it's your go-to. I do this, I feel this, da, 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 da. That's the routine, that's the pattern of behavior, that's what I do. And with CBT, it's almost like sticking a bit of no, hang on a minute, right? How do we change that up? How can we make that different? How can we make that better? So that isn't stopping like negative thoughts, for example. It's understanding that we're having them, recognizing them. But how are we going to change that? What happens next? And so the principle applied with Sarah. That's exactly what we did. We were like, right, okay, let's interrupt this pattern of behavior by moving you into another area of your house. And it worked. It worked a treat. And so, yeah, let me know if you're watching this and thinking, I'm going to try something different. Or if you don't know what to try differently, just message me, drop me a message, and, I'll be able to come up with some ideas with you. And let's just see. And again, use the behavioral experiment. Did it work? Yes, it did. Brilliant. You're on the right track. Maybe it didn't work. Okay. Why didn't it work? What will I do differently then? No, it's just that bit that I can see why that didn't work. But what I'm going to do is da, 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 da. There you go. Because it's not a one size fits all. It's trying it and it's being prepared to try it. It's amazing, and it's amazing the impact. And it's fascinating how some of these bad habits can have an effect on everything. Like I say, this was affecting herself, and her relationship with her daughter and her work. And so by making a simple change, all of those things improved for her. It's amazing. So definitely worth something to think about. So from the book, he says habit formation is the process by which a behaviour becomes progressively more automatic through repetition. And that's the thing, isn't it? Like I was saying, a habit is just something we do on autopilot, you know? And like thinking of Sarah, that's what she did. Her evenings would, her daughter would have tea and then she'd sit for a bit with her and then she'd go upstairs, she'd get into bed, she'd read her a story, she'd come downstairs, she'd go in the living room, she'd have a drink. That was, and she would just do that on autopilot. And before you know it, she's like, oh, I've drunk every night for months. And again, there'll be other things that you just do on autopilot because it's just what you do, your morning routine, getting the kids ready for school or whatever. We just do it. If you're doing the same journey to work, you just do the journey, don't you? Because you just do it kind of on autopilot. The more you repeat an activity, the more the structure of your brain changes to become efficient at that activity. So the more you do something, the better your brain gets at doing it, because it just remembers that that's what you do. And so it gets really good at doing that. So then when you're changing the habit, the key is to repeat the change. People talk about, it takes 21 days to break a habit. The important element is how many times you practice the change of habit. That's what makes the difference. So it's not necessarily how long you've been doing it for, it's the number of times that you do it for. That's what will make the difference, because your brain then is creating new kind of neural pathways and thinking, oh, this is what I do now. And I've done this with my morning routine. I used to have a morning routine that when I shone a spotlight on it, it wasn't working for me. It didn't serve me very well. And so it was like, okay, so I'm going to mix it up then, or I'm going to change it. There's some things I took out. There's some things I added in. There was some things I moved around. I don't need to do that first thing because actually it doesn't work for me doing that then. I'm going to put that later or whatever. But then at first it felt a bit, what am I doing next? Kind of thing. But eventually, because I was doing that every day, then it's like, oh yeah, and now that's my morning routine. But it wasn't the length of time I did it for, it was the fact that I did it every day, and it became, this is what I do now, this is my, and you'll have the same in your household, on a morning, you'll have a routine, won't you? Getting up and yeah, we do the thing and we go to the bowl, we get the bowls out, we get the cereal out, we get the milk out, we get the coffee, you just have a thing that you do. And that's because your brain has just become attached to that routine and it's got good at it. You're very good at getting your breakfast ready and getting ready for work on time because your brain's got used to it. How many times have you said that, even on your day off, you still get up at the same time because your brain's tuned into that's what time I get up. It's ready for getting up. It's like, no, it's my day off. I don't need to get up at 7. Brain's like, no, I get up at 7. That's what we do. That's what we do now because that's what you do. So I really wanted to share that with you today. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've got value from this. Like I say, it's just our habits are how we work through the day, really, and how we understand our habits is really key. And understanding whether they're serving us, but also understanding that we can change them. And it might feel a bit awkward and a bit, I call it clunky. It might be a bit clunky at first because it's a bit of a, no, I'm doing this now. However, over time, that becomes the new norm. So yeah, let me know if there's anything that I can help with, or if you're feeling stuck, drop a like or tag anybody in this video, or share this video if there's anybody that you think might benefit from watching this today. But thank you for watching, and I will be back next week with another Mindfulness Masterclass. Have a great week. Take care. Bye.